The room was dimly lit, the only source of light being a flickering candle on a small wooden table. A woman sat by the window, her gaze fixed on the bustling village outside. Neka's hands trembled as she folded a piece of fabric, her heart heavy with secrets too painful to utter. She wore a bright Ankara dress, but the vibrant colors contrasted sharply with the dullness in her eyes. This was her life, beautiful on the surface, but shadowed with unspoken torment. Her husband Chijoke was the village's wealthiest farmer, known for his booming laughter in the marketplace. His donations to the church was also known. To the community, he was a man of honor, but behind closed doors, he was entirely different. Neka's eldest child Kelechi was 12, a lanky boy with a quiet demeanor. He was unusually perceptive for his age, often reading his mother's pain in her eyes, though he never said a word. The youngest Adora was just 6, a ball of energy and innocence that sometimes felt like the only light in the household. The children often heard muffled arguments through the walls at night. Sometimes it escalated to the sound of shattering plates or stifled cries. On such nights, Kelechi would press Adora's head to his chest, whispering lullabies to drown out the noise. He wanted to protect her from the darkness that he himself didn't fully understand. One evening after dinner, Chijoke returned home in a drunken stupor. His booming voice echoed through the small house as he demanded his meal. Neka rushed to the kitchen, her hands shaking as she served him. "This soup is cold," he bellowed, fingering the bowl against the wall. The hot liquid splattered on Ineka's arm, but she dared not flinch. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Sorry won't warm my food," he roared, raising his hand. Kelechi, standing in the corner, clenched his fist, his small body trembling with suppressed rage. He wanted to intervene, but he knew he couldn't. He was just a boy, and Chijoke was a mountain of a man. That night, as the house fell into an uneasy silence, Neka sat by the window, tears streaming down her face. She thought about leaving, but where would she go? In their community, a woman leaving her husband's house was unheard of, a disgrace to her family's name. She was trapped, bound by chains that no one could see. The next day, Nneka visited the village market to buy vegetables. Her best friend Ifunanya met her there. Ifunanya was a widow who had always been fiercely independent, a trait Nneka both admired and envied. "Nneka, you don't look well," Ifunanya said, her brows furrowed with concern. "I'm fine," Nneka replied, quickly forcing a smile. "You are not fine," Ifunanya said firmly, lowering her voice. "I know Chijoke. I've seen the way he looks at you, the way you flinch when he's around. You don't have to say it, but I know." Nneka's facade crumbled and tears welled up in her eyes. "What can I do, Ify? Where would I go? My children, my family, they will all blame me. Your life is worth more than their opinions," Ifunanya said, gripping Nneka's hand. "You deserve peace. Your children deserve peace. You don't have to stay in silence." But silence was all Nneka ever had known. She nodded weakly, her mind swelling with doubt. Days turned into weeks, and Chijoke's outbursts became more frequent, more violent. One fateful night, after a heated argument, he hit her so hard that she collapsed on the floor. Blood trickled from her lips as she stared up at him, her vision blurred. Kelechi ran to her side, shielding her with his small frame. "Don't touch her!" Kelechi shouted, his voice crackling with fear and anger. Chijoke froze for a moment, startled by his son's defiance. Then he sneered, his voice dripping with contempt. "You think you can protect her, boy? You are nothing!" Kelechi didn't back down. For the first time, Nneka saw something in her son's eyes: strength, courage, and a resolve she had long lost. That night, as Chijoke snored in the bedroom, Nneka made a decision. She couldn't let her children grow up in this environment. She couldn't let them believe that this was normal, that this was loved. She packed a small bag with essentials and woke Kelechi and Adora. "We are leaving," she whispered in her trembling voice. "Where will we go, Mama?" Kelechi asked, his eyes wide with worry. "To Ifunaya's house," she replied. "She will help us." The walk to Ifunaya's house felt like an eternity. The moonlight guided their steps, and Nneka clutched Adora's hand tightly. Her heart pounded with every shadow that moved. Kelechi walked beside her, his small shoulders squared as if he was trying to shield his family from the unknown. Ifunaya opened the door, her face with a mix of surprise and understanding. "Come in," she said, pulling them inside. For the first time in years, Nneka felt a glimmer of hope. Ifunaya gave them a place to sleep and promised to help Nneka rebuild her life. Word spread quickly in the village. Tongues wagged, and whispers filled the air. Some criticized Nneka, calling her ungrateful and disrespectful. Others praised her courage, though they dared not to say it openly. Chijioke, furious and humiliated, demanded that Nneka return. He sent elders to mediate, insisting that a woman's place was in her husband's house. But Nneka stood firm. "If I return, she will kill me," she said boldly during a meeting. Her voice quivered, but she didn't falter. "I will not raise my children in fear. I will not teach my son that violence is strength, or my daughter that silence is survival." Her words shocked the elders into silence. Women in the crowd exchanged glances. Some nodded softly. Her bravery ignited a spark, a conversation that had long been suppressed. With Ifunaya's help, Nneka started a small business, selling handmade jewelries. It wasn't much, but it was enough to feed her children and keep a roof over her head. Kelechi began to thrive in school, his once quiet demeanor replaced by a new-founded confidence. Adora remained a cheerful self, but now her laughter rang through the house without a shadow of fear. Over time, other women in the village began to confide in Nneka. They shared their own stories of pain and oppression, stories that they had kept hidden for years. Together, they formed a support group, offering each other strength and solidarity. Chijioke's life, once filled with admiration and respect, began to crumble. People started questioning his character and his reputation as a man of honor. It was tarnished. He tried to rebuild his image, but the truth had already taken root. Nneka's story became a turning point for the village. Slowly, attitude began to shift. Women started to speak out against abuse, and men were held accountable for their actions. The unspoken chains that had bound so many began to break. Years later, Nneka sat under a mango tree. Her hands was busy weaving a basket. Kelechi, now a young man, sat beside her, studying for his university entrance exams. Adora played with her friends nearby, her laughter filling the air. Nneka's scars hadn't disappeared, but they no longer defined her. She had found her voice, her strength, and her purpose, and in doing so, she had given her children a better chance of a future. The morals of Chain Unspoken is clear. Silence perpetuates suffering, but courage can break even the strongest chains. Domestic violence thrives in secrecy, but when we speak out, we not only save ourselves, but also inspire others to speak freedom. No one deserves to live in fear, and no one is ever truly alone. This story reminds us that while breaking free can be very terrifying, the price of staying silent is even far greater. Let us stand together, speak out, and create a world where no one is bound to chains unspoken. Underneath the sprawling blue sky of a quiet suburban neighborhood stood a modest brick house. From the outside, it seemed ordinary. Flower beds lined from the front yard, and the laughter of children playing nearby often painted an idyllic picture of harmony. But behind the closed doors of 36 Cedar Avenue, Daniel's world was far from tranquil. Watch out for the next series on Palantra TV. Same time next week. Bye.